So because brain part 2 was so wild and exciting, I had to make a brain part 3. And so here we are. We got a few more things to talk about with the brain. And so this should be a shorter video. All right, so let's talk about the limbic system. The limbic system is, there are several parts of the brain that make up the limbic system. So you don't need to necessarily know this. It could be part of the cerebral cortex, the diencephalon. There's a lot of different things. And this has a lot to do with the emotions and the affective brain of the body. There are a couple things that are important here. One of them is called the amygdaloid body, or sometimes you'll just see it called the amygdala. And the amygdala is the part of us that recognizes facial expressions, particularly things like angry, fearful. This is the part of us that assesses danger. When you walk into a room and you look at people's faces, you can, within just a few seconds, realize, okay, I'm safe. Or just the opposite. If you've ever walked into a place and felt like there was something wrong or dangerous, this is your amygdala telling you this. This is a survival mechanism. All right. You also have the cingulate gyrus here, and this plays a role in expressing emotions via gestures. And so some people talk with their hands, some people are really expressive with their faces. And so here you have this cingulate gyrus that does this. It resolves mental conflict. So when you're trying to think through things in your mind and make them work, this is what this is doing. The limbic system is also so when you assign an emotional response to something like an odor, so a skunk sprays on your back porch and you think that is bad, it smells bad. Well, it doesn't smell bad. It has a smell. Why do you think it's bad? Well, because this portion of your body is telling you it's bad. It could be harmful. And so the limbic system is protecting you in this way. This allows us to react emotionally to things that we consciously understand to be happening around us. And so just think emotions when you think the limbic system. Then there's the reticular formation. When you first read this, you may think that this thing called the reticular is forming. No, this thing is called the reticular formation. And it extends through the central core of the brainstem and out into the cerebrum. It has lots of different nerves that go out and to do that. And it's sending constant impulses out into the rest of your brain. And why does it do that? It's keeping you awake. It is keeping you conscious and alert. All right. It filters out repetitive stimuli as well. So like in my room right now, the fluorescent lights make noise. If I stop what I'm doing and listen for it, I can hear it. Otherwise, my brain filters it out. I no longer need to be informed of this repetitive noise that's happening in my room. There's also smells in my room. People walk into the room. Well, you've seen the commercials, right? The nose blindness thing. Like you walk into the room, a room has a particular smell. I don't notice it, but other people do. Man, it stinks in here. Oh, it does? Because my brain has stopped telling me that. And so this is the reticular formation. The reticular formation is inhibited by sleep. It's also inhibited by things like drugs and alcohol. So you can have trouble processing these things if you are inebriated in any way. Injury to this reticular formation can result in something like permanent unconsciousness, like a coma, because you no longer have something that's telling you to wake up. And so it keeps you awake and it keeps you conscious. All right, so let's look at some higher mental functions like language. Think about language, everything that's involved in language. Just think about the language that you know, or if you know more than one language, think about those languages. Maybe you've learned a language late in life and what's all involved in doing that. Language is not just hearing, it's speaking, it's reading, it's understanding, it's taking words and assigning meaning to them. It is pictures, so it's a visual representation as well. Think of everything that is involved in speaking a language. I'll give you an example. So I have learned to read several languages. I cannot speak those languages. And if someone was speaking them, I might be able to recognize they were speaking that language after a while, but I would not be able to put together what they were saying. I can see the words on a page and make sense of them. I cannot hear them. It's because those parts of my brain don't really talk to each other anymore because my brain is pretty much set. But when you're young, those brain those brain parts are all starting to get to know one another. And that's why you can learn languages much easier as a younger person than you can as an older person. The same is with music. Music does this same thing as well. Music is a math problem. Music is something that we hear. Music is something that we have to do with our actual motor skills, and you have to put all that together, and it's hard. It's hard to learn an instrument later, but you still can. But the younger you are, the better these things are able to make associations and make connections in your brain. The same can be said of memory. Now, memory is this really deep subject. There are different kinds of memories. We'll go into some of these. There's declarative memory. Declarative memory, this is like memory of facts, like names, faces, words, dates. There's procedural memory. Procedural memory is like, I know how to play the piano. There's a procedure involved. There's motor memory, which is kind of like procedural memory, but this involves more of a motor skill, like riding a bike, you know. And then there's emotional memory. This is when your memory is, you have experiences that are linked to a particular emotion. Like every time you smell pancakes, you think of Saturday mornings growing up. I don't know, all of you people who are young that are listening to this are so, but whatever it is, you make associations of things, and you will always do that. When I smell fresh mowed grass, it makes me think of a certain time of year, and so there's that. And so think about all the different memories that you have. And then there's two stages of these memories, particularly like declarative memory. Some of these other memories have other associations that we make with them, but declarative memory, like names and faces. Have you ever had someone say, I'm bad with names? Well, the reason they're bad with names is because we have this type of memory called short-term memory. And short-term memory is just a temporary holding tank, and it can only hold a certain amount of things. I think the number is actually like 8 different things. And it's short term. You can't do it. In order to put that in your long term memory, you have to make associations. And so people who are really good with names, the way that they do that is they make associations. They'll call someone a nickname. I've known people that were really good at this, that by the second day of school, they have everybody's name. How can they possibly do that? Because they've see that person in their head. They've made an association, maybe with a memory that they have, maybe with something that they something about that person. There's something that is there that they have done. They've also looked at the names and faces, and they've memorized that. And so that becomes part of our long-term memory. Now, that long-term memory can be forgotten, as you can kind of see on this picture here, but our long-term memory has almost a limitless capacity. We don't really, you've heard the silly stuff where people say people only use 11% of their brains. That doesn't mean that if we could tap into the other 89%, we could like make cars explode or anything stupid like that. It just means that we're not using a lot of our long-term storage. We typically are just using that short-term storage to do a lot of what we remember. And so long-term memory has more to do with making associations. And so I'll use this as a little blurb about learning. When you cram for a test, you're doing that short-term thing. And remember when I've said the last thing you look at is going to be the only thing you remember. It's literally true, right? So cramming is not good. You need to have made associations long-term. Study with another person, because then you associate, oh, I remember when such and such said that, and they said this, and it all of a sudden it clicks in your brain. And so that's, hopefully that helps actually thinking about the way to study. But our memory is, we remember things that are important to us, and we make them important by making those associations.